So, hello and welcome to Good Business, the podcast from the Sustainable Business Alliance, where we talk to business leaders about what good business actually means in practice. Today, I'm joined by Renée Watters, founder of Rockleigh Limited. And founded in 2016, Rockleigh operates in the world of arboriculture, from tree surgery and stump grinding through to landscape maintenance. But it's clear that this is a business that's much more than just about trees. It's a business built around people, creating opportunities, supporting staff development, and opening up pathways into skilled work for those who might not otherwise have had those opportunities. That approach has been recognised, including through a King's Award for Enterprise, where Renée even had the chance to speak with King Charles, who noted quite rightly that we need more tree surgeons. And alongside that, the business has supported communities in very practical ways, including stepping in after events like Storm Doris, which really brings to life what good business looks like on the ground. So Renée, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you very much for joining me on SBA Good Business. I think, where we wanted to start was where I always like to start, which is to find out a bit more about the person behind the business and your own journey. And firstly thinking about arboriculture, because it's not the most obvious career path for most people. Perhaps you might say it should be. So how did you get into this line of work, and what made you think that it was something that you wanted to build a business around?
Well, an interesting fact is I've never actually touched a chainsaw myself. I've never used one. The business came from my husband has been a tree surgeon since he was 16, and he was in a previous partnership that wasn't going very well. So they decided to split the partnership. That time just coincided when I was 8 months pregnant with my little boy, which is the perfect time to start a business from scratch. So when the partnership split, he didn't have any premises anymore. He had a few loyal staff, 2 vans, 2 chippers, and we actually worked out of the garage for a year. So that's where it came about. But my background, believe it or not, something completely different, was actually in fitness model shows. So I organised, worked at expos, large ones at the NEC, worked in India, all different things. But in 2016, I just decided I'd had enough of it. It was a really vacuous, shallow world. And I was like, I can't deal with these people anymore. And then we started the business December 2016. So it worked out really well. After I'd settled down after having the baby, I could come on board and do more and more and more and more. And then it just grew from there, really.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, really interesting, from fitness models to arboriculture. And how was that transition? Was it a business, a sector that you were able to pick up fairly quickly and learn a lot about?
As daft as it sounds, the trees are irrelevant to me. My area is marketing the business, and my area of expertise is I can work with the money, and I can market the business, and I can also deal with customers. So whatever I'm doing, those skills are transferable. So when I used to do the PR for the shows, I can then take that framework and move on to it and about the industry, because if I didn't, I'd be eaten alive. So I do understand about the ARB industry, understand the terms, understand the terminology, but I always draw my limits and be like, okay, this is a matter for Tom, or this is a matter for our supervisors. I won't push myself, because I think that just really ruins your respect and your capabilities and the customer's confidence. So I stay in my field.
Yeah, well, and I hear you talking about your expertise in marketing and the financial side of the business, and obviously you had experience previous to that in a different sector. I guess where I'm coming from is where you have, over your years, through your career journey, through your background, through your upbringing, developed certain values in terms of how you see the world. How have they influenced your journey with Rockleigh, and how you've been able to get involved in the business?
But if you're going all the way back, I grew up in Corby, which is a small town, unfortunately known as Toxic Town now from the TV show on Netflix. I was raised by a single mother. It was me and my brother, and that's where the money side of things came in. I was really taught to live on a budget. She taught me everything about the best things to do with finances. So that was how that side of things came in. Then I went to university, I actually did an English and sociology degree. So the sociology enabled me to be able to study people. That enabled me to do a lot of reading of people. So then I went into sales, had various sort of careers in various sort of fields of sales, moving around businesses, doing like area sales management. And then I decided that I wanted to have a baby, and traveling all over the country was not a suitable option for me. So I then had a lot of time off to be a mum, which I really I just wanted to be a mum. I loved it. I loved my time with my little girl. And from that, I then so randomly got into the fitness model industry through dealing with one of my really good friends who ran shows, and he just sort of, the more and more he'd speak to me, and then it just really flew, like it just went from there, and it just flowed naturally into it, and I was in it before I even knew I was, really. So I had a really good 8 or 9 years there, but I think by the last year, Instagram had came out and TikTok and things like that. People just they were using social media much more, which really wasn't of any benefit to me whatsoever, because they were just going straight over my head. Yeah, that's really how it came about. Like I said, the shows, the marketing on it was unbelievable. We supplied a lot of models for MTV. We supplied models for X on the Beach, Love Island. So it was a lot of contact in the press. We did so many news articles. So it was a lot of that, making the brand awareness of modeling, getting that out there. So then I just transferred those skills from that into the angle for tree surgery.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people skills, I can imagine, in both. And you say that, there were elements of fitness models, the sector that you didn't like. Are you able to talk a bit more about that, and then how then things are different within the sector you're in now?
Well, it was, like I say, it was very, very vacuous. The organisers of the shows were very cutthroat. There was very two-faced. There was not a lot of camaraderie. There was not a lot of friendship there. If it started off as friendship, as soon as they found out that if there was money in the area that you were doing, that was it. It was done for. And then the final straw, I actually did a show when I was pregnant. And my friend was with me while I was doing the show, and I'd spent a lot of money on the venue. I'd spent a lot of money on hiring extra rooms, and it's quite a funny story. I was checking the models in so they could go on stage, and one of them turned around to me and said, "Have you got an extra room for me so I could do my revision for my A-levels?" And I thought, I can't deal with this. I cannot deal with this anymore. So that was it, really. Then I thought, I can't. It was like no more.
Yeah, and I guess, how did your experience within that industry and what you felt was perhaps not right, how did that kind of inform what you've now done at Rockleigh and the kind of culture and organisation that you have, and the way that you work with people?
Well, they couldn't be more of a different industry, really, regards to people-wise. Everybody in this industry is friendly. Everybody is like, the team that we work with, one of our customers actually said, "You're more like a pack than he says, "You support each other, your friendships are great. Our team wants to go away on holiday together. They arrange days out." So that was really, for me, what I wanted. It's just a whole different culture. So coming from that, it was just night and day. And I knew the industry through my husband. I knew what people are like. I dealt with various sort of levels of people and various levels of customers, and it just organically flowed into it. The more help he needed, the more people I would deal with to take that off his back, and the better the relationship I got with the customers and the better relationship I got with the staff. And then before you know it, you're just right in there.
Yeah, no, and I think I can imagine that some of that comes from the way that you go about running the business and how you go about recruiting and looking after your people. And I guess from someone who works in the fresh produce industry, you could say within fresh produce, everybody's very friendly, but you have kind of specific companies where you've got a really strong culture compared to others where everyone might be nice, but actually it's not maybe such a nice place to work for. So what kind of things have you done within Rockleigh to ensure that it really is a nice place to work? You've got a strong culture, that people look out for each other, and that it's fundamentally different from the sector that you came from, the experiences that you had within that.
Well, we've created it to be a brand. So Rockleigh is a brand. Our identity is, it's going to sound terrible, but there's so much image of tree surgeons rocking up with ripped shirts, trampy boots, trampy clothes, cigarette on the go, can of Red Bull, rocking up and ripping people off and not having any idea of health and safety or professionalism. So when our team come into that, we mould them from a very young age. And even people who've worked in other tree surgery companies say this is like nothing we've ever known. Make sure that the staff feel valued. We make sure that we listen to them. We have an open door policy, which means I've heard everything under the sun. I have questions from dentists asking me about who's the best dentist, all the way through to questions genuinely about work. We just want to make a job. I think we've all had jobs. Well, in any field, I think everybody has had a job, be it part-time when you're 16, where you wake up and you think, oh God, I don't want to go to work today. And you absolutely dread it. And we don't want that culture. We encourage them to be a team. We have the team bonding days, but they tend to organise that by themselves. The type of characters that the industry attracts, they like to do the same sort of holidays. So people might think because they're all young lads that it's, Ibiza or whatever, but they actually like to go on like hiking holidays, skiing holidays, anything that's sort of a little bit dangerous. They like that. No lying on the beach. So that's what we encourage. We encourage them because as a team, you're working as it. That's it. You are a team. There is no, in sort of jobs you can say, team one, and everybody isn't really bonded. But with this team, you have to know that somebody has got your back, that if you're in a dangerous situation, they're going to go up and rescue you. That if there's somebody, perhaps, when we're doing trees, you get irate people shouting, you want to know that somebody's going to be there to have your back. So by encouraging that team culture, I like to think that it makes people enjoy coming to work because they like who they're working with. And also as well, we're reasonable people. We understand that people have lives and that there's lots of things that happen and it's give and take. So as we're very, very fair with the staff, and in turn, they feel valued and they are prepared to go just that little bit extra for us, and it doesn't become a hassle and it doesn't become a drama. So if there perhaps is a job that starts at 6 a.m, we're like, we have to be there. The guys are like, okay, that's obviously they're being paid for it, but there's never anything like, no, I'm not doing it. Don't put me on that one. It's like, okay, let's go. Must be an interesting job. So, and because every day is different as well, there's projects that you're on. So at the minute we've just finished a project that was all the primary schools in Northampton. So although it's the same project, you're at a different school every day, it's different tree work. It's not monotonous. People do enjoy what they do because it's a bit different. And you might think, oh, today was really boring. Okay, but tomorrow I've got this. That's what we create. We create a team where they actually feel valued, enjoy what they do, and take care of each other.
And that's That's really interesting, because I think there's almost a common theme between the podcasts that we do every month, that the culture of the business seems to be something we often end up talking about. When we spoke to Robert in episode 1 of C Limited, culture was an important theme there, in terms of, how you get the team to buy into what you're doing and work together towards achieving your goals. Likewise, when we spoke to Anthony, founder of Blue Skies, at an episode 2, culture was a really important theme. And actually, one thing that you mentioned about someone having your back was something that he spoke about from his experience in the army. Although you've got different people in different ranks, it doesn't matter if you're a major or you're an officer. You have to trust that person who's looking out for you to make sure you're safe, to potentially be saving your life. And I guess it's similar when it comes to thinking about health and safety, thinking about teamwork, that you want to make sure that you look out for each other, that you can trust each other. I think that's an important word, trust. I would, I kind of hear you speak, and I kind of think, we're on to culture again. I think there's a reoccurring theme here. But would you kind of say, there's a sort of strong sort of feeling of family and togetherness, within Rockleigh?
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, they go on holiday together. They have so much fun. You gotta think they're wild boys, and I say boys because up until the age of 50, they're still boys. They have so much fun. Funny, they'll do pranks on each other all the time. It's like having, I say, like, sometimes when I'm with them, it's like tipping out a bucket of crabs and trying to reel them all back in again, because they're wild and they're feral, and but that's it. They found their people. They found the other ones who are like them, because this is hence why we started this scheme, because it is very, very hard to find somebody who shares that interest with you, especially for people now who are 16, 17, and especially for the ones who were sort of they had the lockdown and they were at home a lot. To find people now who are really like to be outside, feel the grass between their toes, get the fresh air, and the idea of being inside is their worst nightmare. And it's funny that you actually say about the military, because when I speak to the guys, I say, if you weren't doing this, a large majority of them say they would be in the military, which is interesting. And I think it shows the need for that camaraderie. There's been sort of situations with injuries, and they'll go to the hospital with each other. They'll sit there until they know that one's safe. And there's nothing like, I'm going to shoot off because it's the end of my shift now. It's like, no, we need to make sure that person is safe. We need to wait until their girlfriend or their mum and dad come here, and we're not leaving until then, which I think is wonderful. They like to take care of each other. If they have issues, it's a real sort of take care of each other, it's a contrast to the image of the big macho men with the chainsaws and doing all the dangerous things. They actually really want the best, and they want the other people to succeed that are in their team. They want to support them. So that's what we try and encourage, and that's what I think is wonderful and is different to other companies.
So it sounds as if there really is this kind of strong sense of responsibility within everyone, that they feel naturally that they want to help. They want to go above and beyond, not just because it's their job, but because they themselves feel it's an important part of their sort of sense of family, which is, really, really interesting to hear. I mean, it sounds as if you have such a strong bond, and I think that is so key to the culture of the business. That, as I always say when we talk about culture, that it really is kind of fundamental, I think, to success of many businesses and how businesses are able to demonstrate that they can do good in the world. Is there a particular kind of philosophy that you have at Rockleigh, particularly when it comes to your approach to people, that, the kind of people that you want to work with, that you want to give opportunities to, that your philosophy is central to that?
We want people who want to work, who want to do the job. We want people who, I mean, just say, for instance, this is an example of a bad interview that we had. Chap came in, well, number one, he couldn't follow a Google map, which is the worst. Bad point. If you can't follow a pinpoint, how are you going to find a tree in a wood? And he turns up half an hour late because he was trying to find us, which is really bizarre because Arundel's a tiny village. And he turns around and he says, we're like, why do you want to come and work for us? He goes, because I hate my job and I just thought I'd try something else. I was like, well, that's not the right answer. So that sort of person sounds harsh, doesn't deserve an opportunity. They don't deserve what we're willing to offer them. But we want somebody who'll come in and say, like we've had people who are 16, they'll come in, they're like, right, I've been on your website and I've seen that you've done this and this, and I've seen that you've done this, and I've seen that you worked with this person, I've seen you got this piece of kit. And the ones that have done their research and the ones that are passionate about it, you can't teach passion. You can't. You can teach the knowledge and you can teach the method, but you cannot teach the passion. So that's what we want. And we will send them out. They'll have a little trial day and they'll be in the field. And the guys can tell straight away whether or not they're going to last. If they're work shy, which people do, they don't even pick up a rake. And if they try that on their trial day, that's it. Because we think if you're trying to impress us and the best you can do is standing there on your phone, then forget it. That's just the way we operate. So we want people who are passionate. You don't have to know everything about trees when you come to us. You just have to have a willingness to learn. You just have to understand what we're offering them. Nobody else does this. And if they've done their research into other tree surgery companies, they'll know that it's not offered the way we do. They'll know that they don't work the way we do. So I want somebody who's going to appreciate that opportunity, but also somebody who's going to like be a buddy, be a pal, in with the friendship group, and also as well respect our culture. We have like very strict rules about uniform. We don't have dirty vans because there's nothing worse than somebody having a dashboard full of McDonald's wrappers and things. So we don't have that. We'd like to make sure the vans are clean. It's also just even silly things like making sure the fuel is filled up at the end of the day so the next person doesn't get in the van and it's empty. And it's just little bits of respect like that. So somebody, if they're not willing to accept that culture and understand it, then that's not what we want.
And do you find that because you've got this quite close-knit community, that there's more of a kind of tendency to respect these expectations when it comes to how you should behave at work and the sorts of things you should and shouldn't do, as opposed to it being sort of more forced within other businesses? So because you've got that culture, how do you find it? Or do you find that actually you've got to drill this into people?
It's half and half. I'd say that they come in and they understand there's a culture, but they don't understand how strict we enforce it. They don't understand because a lot of them come in and they're like, say, very young and they're coming to the training. They haven't worked with any other companies. So they maybe even full stop. They haven't had another job full stop. So they don't really understand about, how the importance of uniform, the importance of the way the company speaks to people, the customers. They don't really understand that. So that's really what we have to drill into them. Like I say, I always think it's essential for somebody to do some sort of forward-facing customer service job. I think it is, because you learn so much if you work in retail, if you work in bars, waitressing, things like that, just to learn how to deal with people. So that can be the hard thing for people, the staff, if they haven't done that, to come in and understand how, not that they're ever disrespectful, but to be able to have that little bit of chat with them and, they're always polite and they're always friendly and they're never disrespectful. But you can see the ones who've had a bit of, training with different people and they've got like a bit more of a giggle with them and friendly. So I think that's the importance of the culture, that they see how we operate. We want our customers to feel comfortable with us as well, because they're not going to come back to us if somebody was rude and standoffish. And it also carries a hell of a lot of cleanup for me and Tom if a customer, complains about, because we don't want that. We do not want to ever hear that a member of staff has been rude or they're not happy with their job. And we, as a company, will ensure that that person is dealt with correctly, and we will also go back and rectify everything that we can with that customer, because that's not our culture.
And have you found any examples where someone has come into the business, maybe they've got a bit of an attitude, they don't quite understand, or they're not sort of abiding by all of the expectations on them, and they've transformed? There's somebody now who's completely respectful of all those expectations. They're part of the family, and maybe they're sort of leading by example.
We've had people who, we've had it from both sides. We've had the side where it's just never going to work, and after that 3 months, you just know that culture, they're never going to fit in. And that was the hardest thing for me, because I thought to myself, oh, I've failed, they haven't done it. But then somebody actually said to me, not every job is right for everyone. And I thought, why am I trying to fit, a round peg in a square hole? It doesn't work. We've had quite a few that come in and they're fairly sort of lackadaisical, and, they're a bit sort of doing the bare minimum, and then perhaps they'll work with some of the older members of staff, some of the ones that have been there a long time, and they will absolutely work them to, they'll not have a spare second, they'll stop for their lunch and then that's it. Some of them will turn up on site and go, oh, should we get a coffee? Get the tools out the van and we're working now. And then once they've had a couple of sessions like that, they're like, okay, this is how we work. It's not a playtime, it's not a joke, it's serious. And they do massively transform. And we had our actual contracts manager, he came in as just chucking stuff through a chipper. He just didn't. When we very first started, he didn't have any work on, and he was like, look, can I just come and do a bit of labouring for you? So he was coming in and raking, and now he's worked his way up over the 9 years to contracts manager, just bought him a brand new BMW company car. So he's worked that way through. And I also think that inspires the other members of staff as well, because they've seen, okay, he's done it, and it's quite possible that I could do that. So I think if we stick at the company, so I think it's a massive, benefit to have that.
Yeah, no, quite clearly. I think you must have some sort of great stories of the people within your business and how they've progressed, which is great to hear. And as I mentioned earlier, you've also received some fantastic recognition, including the King's Award for Enterprise for Social Mobility and the Theo Paphitis Small Business Sunday Award. And you've attended a reception at Downing Street. So, yeah, why don't you tell me a bit about that? So, but firstly, the King's Award, how did you receive that, and what was it like to meet the King?
Well, we actually won the Princess Royal Training Award with City and Guilds, and we got a special commendation as well when we were there. So that was amazing. We got to meet Princess Anne, and I was like, what can I do next with the King? So I thought, I'll go for it. And everyone said, you'll never get it the first time. And I went into it with a very, wouldn't say that it was sort of a defeatist attitude, but I was like, I'm going to try. I'm going to get my, I don't think I'll get it, but I'll get the feedback and I'll build up on it. So I did the application, and it took me about 40 hours to do it. And we actually there was a massive mistake. We actually got an email that said we didn't get it, and it had actually gone out to all the applicants, and it was this huge mistake. And then an hour later I got an email saying you're still in the running, and then 3 weeks later I got an email to say that we had it, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just over the moon. But you have to keep it secret, because they release it on the May bank holiday, so this year's one should be coming out soon, and that's the hardest thing. So you have to really set up. And I didn't realise how few had won it in our category, because there was only 8 that year. I think 156 applied, and I think 40 got down to the final, and then 8 won it. And Little Old Us is in there with Timson's. Timson's, the the shoe maker
Yes.
people and or shoe repair people. So I was I couldn't believe it. But yes, so I got to go to the reception and I got to meet the king, and it was very bizarre because when we met Princess Anne, there was a lot of formalities and how you're supposed to address her. And I was expecting this with the king, but it was just like a cocktail party, and you turned around and the king was there. It was really, really lovely and really relaxed. And I had a little red dot on my badge, and that meant that he'd researched the business. And I was stood next to somebody who was talking about organic pesticides or something. And then the king sort of moved down to me and he's like, oh, you're the opposite of what they do. He's like, tell me about your business. He's like, how have you found it? Have you found your training scheme? Does it increase, he's like, tell me about the staff, how are they doing? What's your retention rate? And he says, well, keep doing what you're doing. We need more tree surgeons, and walked off. And I just was like, when he walked away, it's like, I can't believe that happened. And the Theoprophetus one was fun. That was a fun award. But the 10 Downing Street one was the most bizarre experience because our unit, because we're at a marina, actually flooded. And we just got this whole new carpet down, and I'm trying to get rid of this flood, and I'm soaking everything up. And I was absolutely raging because my carpet had been down a couple of weeks. I was like, this is ruined. And I said to my the office girls, I said, look, I don't want any phone calls. I says, I'm not taking anything from anyone. I was like, I need to sort this out. I'm in a foul mood and I don't want to talk to anybody. And when the girls came in and she said, you've just had 10 Downing Street on the phone. I was like, well, I would have spoken to them. And she's like, they said that they were going to email you. And I'm like, what could they possibly email me about? So I thought it was a joke. I thought it was an absolute joke. And I got the email through. And believe it or not, I actually, many years ago, worked in a call centre as a part-time job. And one of my accounts was 10 Downing Street. And I looked at the email, I was like, that is the real email. That is it. I remembered it, but the cogs were turned from all those years back. And the invitation, and that was the Wednesday. And then, no, it was the Thursday. And then by the Tuesday morning, we had a breakfast reception there. So it was just, again, we didn't get to meet the Prime Minister. He didn't want to speak to us. It was quite a weird time because Parliament was coming in, and so we had to be sort of relatively monitored, and we couldn't be there too long. So it was a really strict 45 minutes, and everybody wanted a picture by the door, but we couldn't go out. So we were all standing there, ready for our picture until the Parliament had come in and we could get there and get the picture by the door. But all these unbelievable experiences, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe they've happened, to us. I can't believe it when I think about, as in the garage that we had, just with the staff, and, my staff would come on, in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, they'd have the cars parked in my drive all day. And I think about that, and I can't, from where we come from in less than 10 years, it's just unbelievable. It really, really is. And then the companies that I've got to be, associated with, the companies through various channels, either City and Guilds or the King's Award, all these massive, massive companies. And there's little old us, and I think, well, then we must be doing something right.
Of course, yeah, no, absolutely. And I was going to say, all this recognition, well deserved. What difference has it made? Have you found it's had an impact on your overall business and your, the way your clients think of you and how you can attract new clients?
It has a massive impact for our clients that we have now. Sort of subcontract to a lot of facilities companies. So what they can do is they're tendering for business too. And they can say, okay, well, if you do this, this is the company that's going to be doing your work. And, you've got the pictures of the king, you've got the awards, you've got everything there. And that gives their customers confidence in the type of people that they're having to do the work. And then it's a real talking point. Everybody loves to hear about the awards. So it gets that conversation going with new customers, but also the staff as well. We did win it for promoting opportunity. We did win it for, the the children who were at school and didn't feel right and hid in cupboards because they didn't want to go to classes. And, this is a very sort of going off topic here, but this is my husband is, heavily dyslexic, and that wasn't really recognised in school, and he was classed as the naughty boy, but he has so intelligent, and that's what I would find with a lot of our team. It's a funny story where he was actually at school and had to go and look at the wall and count the dots because he was being naughty one day. So he got a piece of A4 paper, counted the dot in that, and then timesed it to make the dots in the wall. And the teacher said he was stupid for doing that because he didn't count the dots. But I think that's probably the most intelligent way to do it, and that's the way that the team that we have, they adapt. And I think that they've learned a lot of the coping mechanisms through different methods. So when they felt that they were being written off, they're now working for a company that the king knows about. Even just the king knows about you. It's fascinating. You think about it when you go to work. A company that Princess Anne knows about, a company that has been recognised by so many different channels, and it gives them a tremendous amount of pride as well in what they do. It's a fantastic opportunity for them to know that we're behind the scenes pushing the company, and therefore we're pushing them and their capabilities. And we how can I put it? When we do the awards, it's not because of how we do business, it's because of how we push them, how we believe in them. So having the opposite to how they felt at school, it gives them a huge amount of pride in what they do.
Yeah, and I think I get a sense from when you're talking that a lot of your pride in the business and everything about what you do at Rockleigh, is around actually what you want for your team, your people that work for you, providing those opportunities for what you've won awards for those people that might not otherwise have had those opportunities. And it's interesting because you mentioned, your husband and his dyslexia may not have been given those opportunities that he might otherwise have got if it wasn't for that. And actually, do you kind of feel a sense of, we're different. We want to make sure that people who have got the potential to develop, who might not be recognized elsewhere because of, societal norms and expectations, here we give people a chance. Would you say that's quite sort of central to your business, but also the future of your business and where you sort of see yourself in 5-10 years and your purpose as an organisation?
Absolutely. We do careers fairs, and what I sort of tell the people who come to me, their potential pupils, is that I don't look at CVs. There was one guy that we did a careers fair in my old school. And I was sort of talking to him, and I was like, how did you do in your GCSEs? He's like, I didn't get any. He says, I hid in the cupboard. I didn't want to go to do the exams. I hid in a cupboard. And I thought, I had never known that, but the guy is so intelligent. What I found was the team could go around and they could have amazing discussions with customers about, the tree work that needs doing in nature and every single technique. But if you would hand them a piece of paper for them to write down, they'd lose all that confidence. So we also worked with an app creator. So the app makes it easier for the staff to not only do the risk assessments, the RAMs, and it also makes it easier for them to, when they're going around with customers and discussing work, everything's, it's clicking, it's easier. So it makes it so much more, the work, it's less threatening, it's less panic stations, because they're not going to be asked to write something down or be handed a piece of paper to follow. So that's really the benefit of the app, and it just makes it so much easier for them to do the job. We want everything to be as easy as possible for them to do their work.
Yeah, I see it's really sort of innovative and pioneering what you're doing, because I think it can so much be the sort of the case that we rely too much on sort of CVs and what we might sort of conventionally expect of people. And I think I've heard other entrepreneurs say something similar, that they tend not to even look at kind of the experience or academic qualifications that they've had and ask the questions, does this person have the potential, and do they fit within the culture? And quite often, if the answer is yes to both of those, then they can succeed. And I think there's something in that, because it does give people opportunities, like we've said, that otherwise might not have those opportunities, particularly people coming from vulnerable backgrounds who've not had the privilege to have the kind of education or access to education and opportunities that others born into a different background might have. And I think it's really admirable the way that you operate your business, and I think certainly something that others can learn from. And I guess to finish off with, my final question, I think, is if you had any advice to other businesses that wanted to kind of create a culture and a close-knit workforce like you've been able to create at Rockleigh, what would your advice be?
Create a job where they look at the clock at 5 and wish it was 2, rather than looking at it at 2 and wishing it was 5. Create a company where they feel that they can be themselves. Create a company that shows them respect as well. That sort of culture. Encourage them to, it's so easy to pitch people against each other. It's so easy to do that. I think as an employer, you also have to be, stay out of any dramas that they may have, because that, they need to sort that out themselves. I think as an employer, you have to encourage that friendship so they don't, they say there's the camaraderie, and also as well, just have a laugh and just understand. Like for me, when I talk to different companies, when I could tell stories about what's happened, some bizarre stories, and they say that's not normal. And I'm like, but it's normal to me. It's normal to create a good culture. I just think that you have to respect your staff, and I think that they have to feel really respected. I know it sounds cliche, but I think that they have to feel that from you. And I think, the rot starts at the top down. So if you're not enjoying your job and they can see that, then that's going to, obviously go right down through the staff. They have to know that, they're comfortable. And I see it because me and my husband work together, and I see it in a lot of other a lot of other companies, not just tree surgery companies, that perhaps the husband and wife are getting a divorce or splitting up. And immediately the staff want to leave because the culture becomes very cold. The culture becomes very harsh. And the team don't want that. They want a friendly environment. So something that if the managers aren't happy, if the managers have issues, then that will create a nasty culture. So mine would be focus on the staff, but also focus on yourself. Keep you happy. Keep the levels of motivation up for you, because you're almost like a parent. They have to see that you're happy. They have to see. Otherwise, it's going to have a knock-on effect to them. So that's the way that us to create a good culture. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, and a really good answer. That sort of sense of mutual respect. If you respect your team, they'll respect you. Sort of, I guess, ensuring that we treat each other as human beings at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sorry, just to interrupt there. I recently, I'm epileptic, and I've been quite unwell recently and haven't really been in the office, but the staff have this real caring attitude towards me. They sent me flowers, and anything that I ask them that will help me work-wise, these reports, if you get them in on time, it's going to make my life so much easier. Send me these risk assessments. It's going to make it so much easier for me. They do that because they understand that I am asking out of, they don't want my life to be awkward. They don't want my life to be, challenged. And they want to, I think that comes from the respect that we've had for each other.
Yeah. No, clearly. And I think, one of the, we often sort of talk about, okay, it's very good to have a strong culture, but, what benefit does it have to the business? I think it's quite, some clear examples here. And we often talk about, high levels of staff loyalty, low staff turnover, people motivated to do things and to help each other out. I mean, clearly you can see that is evident at Rockleigh. And no doubt your leadership has played a really clear role here. So I know we're out of time, so I should probably wrap up now and just finish by saying, thank you very much for telling us about your journey and how you've built a strong culture at Rockleigh and what that means to the business and how it's earned you the recognition that you deserve. And I wish you all the best. I wish you well for the future, and I hope to see Rockleigh go from strength to strength. So, Renée, thank you very much and take care. All the best.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. Bye.